peace. I live my peace into the world.
I love that one because it's about change, and that's what our month is about. We're with a theme of change and transformation, transitioning into different things in our life, and him talking about, I might bend, but I ain't gonna break, right?
Yeah.
In that experience. So today, I'm gonna be a little more fly by the moment, and that is, who would like to lead us in our opening statement? Don't stampede me. I don't want to get hurt up here.
There we go.
All right. So if you'll grab the mic, there's the, should be in the middle there. Yeah, you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Travis.
Join me in saying our opening statement together.
There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the good, the omnipotent. Yes, thank you, Travis. So our vision for this community is a unified, diverse world embracing divine connection and inclusion for all, not for a few, but for all. And our mission, we're going to say together. So if you'll join me together, to shine light, peace, and love by empowering and transforming lives through experiences of service and community. Y'all actually read that like maybe y'all cared. Thank y'all. No, sometimes we mumble through the things that we read. Thank you for giving it a little oomph today. All right. So who would like to lead us in lighting the Christ candle? Miss Angel. Miss Angel, I'm going to put you on the spot like I never do anyway. Just tell us what the Christ candle means to you and light it. And if you would, light it from the small candles, if you would. And not the lighter. There you go. Just what does the Christ candle mean and represent to you?
When I see all your shining faces here this morning, and I was looking, look how bright our candles are here. This is the light of all of us. And we amplify it when we're here, and it just rides us through the next week. So shine brightly.
All right. Thank you.
That's your angel. That's good. Amplify like that.
Great. All right. So, why is prayer important?
So we can claim and remember who we are, claim our divinity and
God
remember
needs
what we
more
are.
Travis said God needs to know what we're thinking. Okay. There we go. And that Jeannie said, so we claim who we are, the truth of who we are. Yes. You had something true?
Improve our connection with the higher power, which that's in the 11th step of AA. But improve means we have a connection, but it needs improvement.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So we're having a connection, but we're using prayer to help deepen and improve that connection. Yes, Dave.
Well, it made me think about it yesterday when I was in the mall walking and talked to a friend of mine in the kiosk who's a Muslim. And we were looking at some things, and all of a sudden he stopped and said, I gotta go pray. And I said, oh, okay. And I thought in your head, well, you're going to pray 3 minutes. When he came back anyway, I asked him, why do you pray 3 times a day? And he said, no, we pray 5 times a day. And he said, just to be aware of the connection.
Right.
It
So
was kind of interesting.
So in Islam, they pray 5 times a day. It is part of their practice so that they keep returning to that. And for any of us, if we did something 5 times a day, wouldn't we also remember it more in between those 5 times a day? Just because it was already much more a practice, a part of our lives. So we pray in unity for all the things that you talk about. Yes, Drew?
Just another thing, today's Course in Miracles lesson encourages us to have an hourly remembrance of God, and it says, God is with me, I live and move in Him. Back to the movement.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Drew. All right. So opportunities, you know that we have prayer chaplains within our community. Okay? We don't talk too much about them. Jeannie's a prayer chaplain. I qualify, and Beverly and I qualify as prayer chaplains because of the positions that we hold, meaning we're just unity ministers. But others of you in this community, I know Travis is a prayer chaplain, others who've been trained as prayer chaplains. But you can seek out those people. I know Beverly and I, if you wanted to call us and say, would you pray with me? We would stop and pray right then, because prayer is not a long process. It didn't take hours to pray. You can make it a practice that way, but it doesn't have to be. So any of you that need and want prayer, and it can be prayer for things they're struggling with, but it also can be those celebrations. Somebody has good health going on in their life. We can pray and celebrate that abundance of health, okay? That renewal of the body. Right? So just keep that in mind. There are those of us that are willing to pray with you in these experiences. That is your life. Right? If you'll join me in prayer. Because we open here. We open up to the awareness of the sacredness of this space. Sacred because we are stepping into it. And we open into that awareness that we are the sacred in this space as well. And that wherever we are, God is. And the divine is here now. And within that divine is all that we ever dreamed and hoped for. And all that we long and need is right here, right now. And I am that expression of the divine. I am filled with awareness of abundance, of prosperity. I am this intelligent being that moves forth into my life, revealing what is mine to do. I am filled with compassion, love, kindness. I am all that I ever dreamed and needed. And being that we all are of this divine nature, then we all have access to the same love, compassion, kindness, prosperity, abundance, intelligence, whatever it is that we hope for is already here, waiting for us to release it, to reveal it. So we claim that. We claim that for ourselves, and we claim that for our community. And as we claim it, then we claim it for the world. And I'm grateful that we have a community called Unity of Little Rock, that we have these beautiful light beings that show up and are rambunctious about interacting and sharing with each other. And I'm grateful that I remember the truth of who I am, and just importantly, I remember the truth of who you are. And with that, we say, and so it is. And as you're ready, just staying in this space, just feeling and being aware of your body sitting here, feeling that chair, feeling your feet on the floor, being aware of the sounds in the room, the hum that we have in the AV system, the little chatter I can hear coming down the hall. All of that are the awareness of what this moment is. And in this moment, as I feel this body, hear these sounds, note the rise and fall of the breath within my own body, that I recognize that I am a divine child. Child meaning that I have inherited all of it. It is mine. And what is mine? That magnificence that I can dream and imagine, that is mine. And I can see it when I think of myself and others as light. Luminous beings shining out. And that center of light, that core of light, that is my divine self radiating out. And as it radiates, that light touches those around me. And it's not constrained by distance. It continues to flow and move and shine forth. And as it shines forth, others are reminded to shine themselves. And the peace, the love, the generosity, the abundance, all that we hope for the world, in that shining forth, we provide that resonance that others endeavor to resonate with, to be that same light, that same love, that same compassion, that same abundance. Because that is the truth of who we all are. And as you sit here, I want you to just allow this music to be something that moves you and takes you. Or if need be, you simply ignore it. Because this is your time to step into the truth and the awareness of who you are. So I find that it's easier for me when I close my eyes, that I'm able to come inside. And one of my mentors used to ask me, how do I help myself sit down into that experience of the silence? And that was the perfect words for me, because I see it as me sitting down. So as I close my eyes, the inner vision I have is that I'm sitting into myself. So I invite that as you open your eyes here, that you are getting your focus more out here. But that doesn't mean you have to leave that space. We can be very energetic in our external body, in our voices, in our thought processes, and still be sitting in that silence. So you can continue forth with that. So if you need to here, if it helps you to shake it off a little, to be a little more aware of being back in this space and this time, do that. Do whatever you need to do. And in fact, you want to stand up in the back, stand up in the back. That's perfectly fine here with us. I think maybe by now y'all figured out we don't go too wild because you're doing something that doesn't fit in with everybody else's idea of what's to be done, okay? Because we don't really have a great, perfect idea of what needs to be done. So do whatever serves you in this moment. Right? And with that, Jeannie began us last week with change, and her focus was on the gift of change. How change is important for our lives, and how it actually is, unlike how we may approach it, it actually turns out to be something that's a gift, a blessing for us. But nonetheless, we still struggle sometimes with that idea of change, don't we? Somehow we've been taught in our society that change is not a good thing. You got to be worried about change. You got to be fearful of change. But in essence, change is happening all the time, every moment for us. There is no lack of movement in our existence. We're always changing. Right now, in this last second, 1 million to 2 million cells in your body just died. Okay? So every second, 1 million to 2 million cells are going away. But what's that also mean?
New ones are coming along.
New ones are coming along, okay? So you're in change every second of your existence. Even in those lives that sometimes we think are nothing's new in my life. I feel stagnant in what's going on. My work feels the same. My relationships feel the same. It's just nothing, there's nothing different. Oh, but there is. There's always something different. There's always change taking place in those relationships. I even think about my car. I get in my car this morning. I think my car is the same as it was yesterday, right? It's still got the dirty trash on the floor, still got the bird poop up on the windshield, it's still got those things. But it's not the same, because it's got a little gas in the gas tank. It's got a little more wear on the tires. There's a little more. There's something that's different about that car. And that's true of everything in our life. Change is part of our experience. And I think of change. Y'all ever been whitewater rafting? Okay. You ever? Maybe it was just in a canoe or a kayak. You ever done that? Okay. Boy, you start getting close to that whitewater, and things start to pucker up. Okay. You start to get a little worried about, am I going to make it through this whitewater? And as you get through it, all of a sudden you recognize you're what? You're exhilarated. You're excited. You got a smile on your face. You might even be yelling about it. So from one moment you went from fear to the next moment to this exhilaration. And to me, that's what change is in our lives. Yes, we may have some apprehension about it, but there's also this great opportunity for us to discover the gift, something new that Jeannie shared with us. Let me share what Ecclesiastes says to us about change. Because it says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. So let me read that again. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. So there's always a season. And if it's a season, what happens in our seasons? Don't they come and go, right? Change happens that way in our lives. But here's the list that it gave after that opening statement. It says there's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pick up what you planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stories and a time to gather stones together. Sorry, that was time to throw away stones. And I guess you could throw stories away too. But you want to gather up those stones and stories together, all right? And a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And the list goes on. The point being, yes, everything has its time, has its season. So in our lives, there's always things that are building up, falling away. But the challenge with it is everything that changes has an ending. If it has an ending, then it has a death. And if it's dying, what do we do with death in our lives? Don't we mourn those? Don't we grieve death? So whether we know it or not, all those changes in our lives that we're experiencing and going through, we're mourning them. There's a grief process that goes through with that. And I believe that there's a way for us to utilize that and help us move through and further into that change so that it becomes easier for us to change, but also to come out of it on the other side, like Jeannie was sharing so much with us, and discover there's a great gift. There's a great gift in this, even in the things that are hurtful. I think my grandparents are deceased, my parents are deceased, my siblings are deceased. And some of those deaths were the hardest things that I experienced in my life. But I can look back and now see the gift, see what arose from that ending, that change in my life into the new. And I can find that blessing for me in my life. And I hope for us to find that. So I'm going to share a story with you. And it's a story that if you hadn't read it, I think there's a good chance you saw it on TV.
Or our movie.
In a movie. in the movies. So you saw it in the theater, which it would date you if you saw it in the theater, but you probably saw it in TV. So the actor is Charlton Heston. Okay, Charleston did lots of movies, but what's one of the famous biblical characters that he played? He played Moses. That's right. We got Moses going on here. So there's old Charleston. Okay, that whole story comes out of the book of Exodus in the Bible. It is if you want to read about changes, read Exodus. Because everything changed. There's just story after story after story of nothing but change. The breaking up and the falling away. The building up and the going away. The death and the life. The endings that looked so horrendous that turned into such a blessing. Just goes on in Exodus. But in the story, you remember the movie 10 Commandments? That was where Charleston played the Moses. One of the pieces out of that is God comes to Moses and tells him he's going to go talk to Pharaoh. And if you read in Exodus, God is talking all the time to Moses. The story just goes that God is just having a conversation with Moses every chapter. Just conversations. But tells Moses to go to the Pharaoh because the Israelites are in slavery and bondage in Egypt, and ask the Pharaoh to do what? Let my people go, right? And what's Moses' initial response to that is?
No way.
No, because people that oppose Pharaoh don't usually end up very good shape after the fact. But he eventually does. He eventually goes before Pharaoh and says, let my people go. And Pharaoh goes, no, I've got a good thing going on here. I've got all that. Why would I bother to do that? Right. Yes. So Moses says, well, God has told me that then there will be plagues upon the people of Egypt. And what were the plagues? Boy, we had frogs and locusts and flies and the dying of livestock. The Nile turned to blood. There were others, but what was the big finale?
Passover.
Right, the death of the firstborn. And after that one, the Pharaohs had all the Pharaoh can stand. And he didn't just say, y'all can go on. He throws them out of Egypt. He runs them out of Egypt. And they go into the wilderness, the Israelites. And they're out into the wilderness, and basically, Moses put up with a lot from the Israelites in those stories. And one of the lines that I remember in that was, the people were out in the wilderness and they said, did you bring us into the wilderness because there weren't enough graves?
Yeah.
Basically saying, did you just bring us out here to die? No, that was their whole approach, that seemingly through so much of Exodus. But they're out, and as the story goes, God tells them a specific place that they're to camp. And when they camp there, they start to get very fearful because now they've heard that the Pharaoh has decided maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Maybe we should have all the Israelites back here. So he sends his armies after the Israelites. And the people hear that. And it says that they got sore afraid, meaning they got immensely afraid, not a little afraid, immensely afraid. And Moses responds this way. But Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish in you today. For the Egyptians who you see today, you shall never see again. So he says this to them, and then he raises up his rod at the Red Sea. He raises his arms, the rod, and the Red Sea does what? It parts, right? And the Israelites cross the Red Sea, and the Egyptian army is right on their heels. And as the Egyptian army comes out into the Red Sea, Moses does the same thing, just in reverse. He now lowers his arms, and the Red Sea crashes in, and destroys the armies of Egypt.
Let's see the movie.
Two things in this story. One, metaphysically, the rod represents the I am, our divine self. So here's Moses taking action with his I am. Actually, his words that go with it as well. And the the Egyptians represent really that lower consciousness, that consciousness that doesn't have a connection with our divine self. But also the Red Sea has an interpretation that it represents that same lower consciousness. And I just find it interesting that in essence, that lower state of consciousness destroyed that lower state of consciousness when the Red Sea fell in upon the Egyptians, which might be an indicator of where our consciousness will lead us, right? Into our destruction. But this story to me has something more with it. Because Moses says, do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish today. I think that he was giving us a way to address the changes in our life. Because that's all Exodus is about, just immense change taking place. It says, don't be afraid. Well, we already know they were afraid, right? Okay. And we may be afraid when we look at the changes in our life. We very least feel the emotions and the mourning, the grief, whatever it might be that arises for us. We have those experiences. So it's telling us not to be afraid. And how do we not be afraid in life? Oh, wise ones.
Hide your head in the sand.
Hide your head in the sand. That's right. Because everything goes away because your head's in the sand, right? Yes, true.
Exhale, let go.
Exhale, let it go.
New enlightening breath.
Yes. All right. So True's telling us to breathe, basically. Breathe and release.
See the self in the other.
So what was that, Esther?
See the self in the other.
See the self in the other. Yes. So not to be afraid. If I am seeing the self, myself in the other, or the self in the other, however you want to say that, okay, then maybe I'm also recognizing the gift, the blessing that was in that relationship I had with others. So pick something. What if I'm losing my job? Okay, I've been fired, and I'm fearful because where's my next paycheck gonna come from? How am I gonna get groceries? Okay, in that moment I'm afraid. But if I remember the people that I interacted with, because I know there's at least somebody at that work that you know that there was something positive and constructive. I can remember the people. I can see them and see their lives. I can also maybe see the situations and the experiences I had in that work. How did I help? Maybe I helped customers. Maybe I helped the product to be better, a service be better. Maybe I did something that I can see the positive with that. And as I can see the positive, I'm doing what? I'm being grateful. I'm having gratitude for that. And as I had gratitude, now I can take that breath. Okay? Maybe I've been taking them all along, but I can take another one and do what it says is stand firm. I think stand firm is not about just being rigid and standing like a rock. Standing firm means to do what? To sit in that firmness, to sit in that stillness, to sit in the silence. Okay? And as we sit in that and we deepen that connection to our divine, then what do we become aware of? We see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish. Right? What if that's the guidance, the awareness, the understanding that arises from our divine self? And now I get the opportunity to see, then what do I do about this situation? Where do I go with this? Where do I put my resume in? Maybe where do I go to school again? What city do I move to? It opens me up to all those more changes that might be more, it might raise up more fear, but also allows me to keep that awareness that maybe there's something greater in this experience. Maybe there's a gift here Maybe it was a gift of a better job, better money, better work hours, better for me in this experience. So I believe that Moses was giving us a way to address those changes. But I also like down here that he says, for the Egyptians who you see today, you shall never see again. He didn't say you will never see the Egyptians again. He said the Egyptians you see today. And I think that's given us the understanding that what we had been seeing, we may not see again. Meaning that we've let that go. We've moved through that into a new. So I might say Egyptians, but it won't be the same Egyptians. It won't be the same experience for me in my life. It's giving me the opportunity to recognize that I'm moving out of something. I'm not stagnant in this change at all. You know? He also, at the very next line after he says that, it says, the Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still. Okay. Well, I read for this one. Yes, Astor?
I have a question. So you said that the waters represent the lower consciousness, and the Egyptians also represent the lower consciousness. So my question is, if the waters are lower consciousness, why did they obey God? And why did they open, when Moses spread the arms, and close when Moses brought the arms back together? Whereas Pharaoh, when Moses said, let my people go, he didn't do it. So the waters, to me, are being obedient, whereas the Egyptians are not.
Okay. So Astor's question was really, if the Red Sea represents the lower consciousness, and it responded to Moses' command to part. So why did the lower consciousness respond in that case? When Pharaoh, being representing a lower consciousness, didn't respond to Moses in that. My answer to that would be, one, we're talking metaphysically here. Metaphysically, my lower consciousness is what, what's the word I want to use here? I'm looking for the right word. It is really what acquiesces to my divine nature.
Yes.
So in my own being, my lower consciousness is what has as it a master, and that is my divine self.
Right.
I can control that lower consciousness.
Right. It can open or it can resist, like Pharaoh did.
Yes.
The lower consciousness.
Yes. Now in our story, also Pharaoh, unlike just the Red Sea, Pharaoh represents a being that has free will, has choice to choose whether they stay in the lower consciousness or be elevated. Where the Red Sea is really that overall consciousness, and to me, I would say, think of it as representing the consciousness within Moses, right? That he could command that lower consciousness. So that's...
Water is consciousness, represents consciousness,
Yeah.
high and low.
Yes.
It's affected by our consciousness.
Yes.
So it's our intention and our focus that has the influence over the water. He's saying specifically the Red Sea represented the lower consciousness.
Yes.
Not all sea or all water.
Right. Exactly. And thank you. Thank you.
What did she say?
Excuse me?
Would you repeat what she said?
You want me to be that eloquent?
Basically.
She was saying that actually water as a whole represents consciousness, and it's the consciousness that responds to us, and that the Red Sea that I singled out is the lower consciousness, the Red Sea itself, not all seas, but the Red Sea represents that lower consciousness for us. In the story, yes, in the story. In that context. Because metaphysically, as we move to different stories, things may shift on that, what their meanings are specifically. Maybe generally we've got some similarities, but sometimes there can be some very specific changes.
What Asper was asking, I think, was, I was wondering, why did it respond, the lower consciousness responded to Moses?
Well, think about that in your own lives. Didn't once you deepen your connection with your own divine nature, and you start truly living from that place, doesn't that place control and override the lower consciousness? It has the opportunity to do that. Now, most of us aren't fully living in our divine self, that we're fully expressing that 100% of the time and living that 100% of the time. So we move back and forth through that. But while we're in our divine self, while we're in that silence, and we have that connection to that deliverance that Moses used, that awareness, what's unfolding and lifting up from us, then we act from that place. And that place is not a lower consciousness. Our divine self, as I know y'all can appreciate, isn't a lower consciousness. So we can act from that. It doesn't have to let us only act from our lower consciousness, even though we may move back and forth in that experience from us, right? We'll have those times that we're more aware of our divine self, and those times that we just caught up in our stuff. And we would say that stuff is our lower consciousness. Okay.
Briefly, very briefly, I think the word lower may be being used in two different ways. I think, so the lower consciousness of the Red Sea, that's more like our fundamental consciousness, which is responsive to the higher thoughts. Whereas the lower consciousness of the Egyptians is lower in the sense of confused. It's a confused consciousness that is not responsive, at that time anyway, to the higher thoughts.
And I might agree with that, Astor. I don't think it's only that, but I think that those could be applied on that. And you were going to share something.
So we are water too. So we're 85% more water, and frequency is thought. So lower frequency is where we're coming from, our belief systems that are programmed in and vibrating at a lower, like, fear base. Our higher frequency, or our higher self, is coming from a non-attached love space. So it's a flow, and it's where your thoughts are. So we're water. We are all of that, no good or bad.
Well, that's the resonance, because if you remember Emoto's work, where Messages in Water, where you can actually change the makeup of water by the words and thoughts that you hold and speak to that water.
So Pharaoh was coming in at fear,
yes,
and attack and shame and guilt and control.
Yeah.
And so.
Yes, true.
I was tagging in on what Leanne said, yeah, that water is our constitution. And I've been at times at oceans and talked to the waves and asked the wave to come, let me ride on it, and it'll respond, depending on how attached I am or unattached.
You're the ocean and the drop.
And water is a pretty mystical element in our own composition.
So metaphysically, that whole has everything to do with frequency and who we are.
Well, yes.
Where we're vibrating at.
And to me, when you start talking about water that way, you're talking about a resonance. And that the more we deepen that vibration, step into that divine nature, the more we're resonating with that, the more that resonance resonates within us. This makes me think of, it says the Lord will fight for you. I don't think fight is quite the word that I would use there. But I believe for us, because we talk so much about God, divine, being principle and law, that we make it completely neutral. And it is neutral, meaning that if we apply the principle responds, okay? The principle isn't over there going, Pam's not quite good enough today. I'm gonna with a whole different Pam, It's not happening that way. But I believe that the divine within us has this desire to be expressed. And to me, that would be that expression. The Lord will express for you. Okay? It's trying to express. And I believe that the more we step into that resonance of our divine self, the more we're in it, the more that divine self continues to try to express, and the more expresses. So the more you express, the more you express. That's why it's a practice, and we keep trying to deepen ourselves into that. So all that y'all said are beautiful. Y'all should have been up here, and y'all get the talk. Okay?
Russ, I want to say that when I took my VIP tour of Paramount Studios last month, we got to actually see the pool where they filmed that, and they told us the secret of how they did the parting of the waves and made it come back together. So talk to me after.
Great.
So Travis is in the know on how the Red Sea got parted there in the Ten Commandments movie. All right, okay.
Physically in reality.
Okay.
So, I'm going to just move us into close because y'all's comments and thoughts were beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for those. So what do you do with this? Well, Moses shared with us, right? Are you not going to... It's funny. It's moving on my computer, but it's not moving up there. All right. So so Moses said to the people, don't be afraid, stand still, and allow the deliverance of the Lord to be there. So in our lives of change, it's what? We spend the time to recognize, to really see that gratitude for the people and the situations that we're moving out of, so that we can move from that place of fear into being that still silence, that awareness, that resonance of our divine self, and that we can then hear that deliverance. And that deliverance to me is that guidance. It's that which rises within us, that the awareness, however it comes for us, because each and every one of us is going to come a little different. It doesn't have to be the booming voice like in the Ten Commandments movie, right? It can be that small still voice. It can simply be awareness. It can be thoughts. It can be feelings that we now need to take and put them into action. I'll use our fifth principle in unity, is there's not enough know stuff. We got to put it into action. We've got to take some action with it. You got to act with it. But here's your homework. If it'll move forward for me. Let's see here. It just won't. I don't know what's going on because literally it's moving on my screen and not up here. Okay. All right. So.
Well, you're working with the movie star,
I'm working with the movie. Charles, maybe that's it. Charleston wants his time, right? Moses don't want to go nowhere. All right. So this week for your practice, okay, that's to reflect on the changes of your life. Okay? Think about those things. Think about the big things, but also think about the small changes in your life. All those things that happen day to day, so that I've got a comparison here that I've got thousands of changes that are happening in my life that I probably didn't even think once about. Okay? Versus the big things that I may have given lots of energy to. But think about those changes. Think about those things that you may have been grieving as well and unaware that you were grieving. And identify the people and the situations in that experience so that you can recognize those relationships. You can see the face of the self in the others. As well as now take that process to prayer and meditation. Not for the sake of just prayer and meditation, but so that you can ultimately move into the silence. Be in that resonance of the silence. Because there's where the clarity arises for us now so that we may now know what is ours to do in this experience. So, with that, I have no idea if it's going to let me move.